And that also opened my eyes to the fact that there is a huge opportunity investing in entrepreneurs who might otherwise be a little invisible or not be able to get into the system. Because if they're solving a problem that they're having or you're having, they're probably solving a problem that millions of other people are having also.
Hey everyone, Lisa Carmen Wang here, and I'm so excited to be joined by Randi Zuckerberg. She is the CEO of Zuckerberg Media, an active investor and advisor, having invested in over 50 startups, and sits on the board of directors for The Motley Fool and Life 360. She's a radio host and author of multiple books and has been recognized with an Emmy nomination, 2 Tony Awards, and much more. Prior to founding her own company, Randi was an early employee at Facebook, where she is best known for creating Facebook Live, now used by more than 2 billion people around the globe. Randi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
To start, how did you get started in your investing career?
Gosh, it actually took me a while. First of all, I spent my entire career in Silicon Valley feeling like I was the only woman in every single room that I was in, kind of, desperately clawing my way up to get in the rooms with the guys and have that kind of respect. And the guys around me were angel investing for years before I kind of caught on to the trend. They would be going on their ski trip and discussing deals and startups. And honestly, for me, it wasn't until a few years after I left Facebook that I started thinking, well, I have this great expertise in social media and technology. Why shouldn't I be in those deal flows also? I had to really proactively work at getting into those networks. Today, I'm really thrilled that there are so many more women who are investing and sharing deals and more organized communities around it. But I made a lot of mistakes at first and really, felt like I was a little bit alone.
What were some of those early mistakes that you made?
Well, I think first of all, I didn't really understand what to look for. In those early days, I would look at a pitch deck and I would think about the idea. What I've learned now after doing this for a decade is that it's much more about the founder than it is about the actual idea. Ideas change sometimes a dozen times. Every single company pivots and changes. In fact, I don't think I have ever invested in a company that 5 years later looked the way it did when they pitched me. But in the beginning, I didn't really understand that it's really about the founder and their passion and their grit and enthusiasm. And so I would kind of just make investment decisions on pitch decks alone, and that never wound up being successful. I also made investments in fields that I didn't personally know that much about. I kind of just, travel industry looks fun. This looks fun. Today, I'm much more disciplined. I know what I know and what I don't know. And I really have kind of 3 main buckets that I make investments in today, where I know that I can be not just a financial investor, but also a value add investor.
And that's really important because I think a lot of angel investors today do want to be an integral part of that journey and add value to the company. What are some of the value adds that you bring to founders?
Well, first of all, I think there are so many ways to be a value add investor. I think, people have a myth in their mind that you need to have so much money in order to be an angel investor, but there are just countless ways that you can be helpful to a startup and an entrepreneur, even without the ability to write huge checks. First of all, you have your network. Opening up your network to a founder, whether that's for partnerships, whether that's introducing them to other potential investors, is huge. If by getting access to you, an entrepreneur gets access to all the people in your network, you're doing them a huge favor. Your expertise is also incredibly valuable. I know that when I meet with an entrepreneur, I'm walking into the room with 15 years of expertise in social media, in working directly with founders and entrepreneurs. I know that through all the companies that I've invested in, I've seen the patterns of the challenges that entrepreneurs face again and again, and I can guide them through it. So I think the third thing is that there's kind of just, intangible just support that you give an entrepreneur when you sign on. Entrepreneurs hear so many no's they get rejected so many times. And so you never know if your yes, even if it's a tiny check or tiny bit of help, is what really gives that entrepreneur that confidence to see their vision and their dream through. And that's not something that you could put a price tag on. So I think there are a lot of amazing ways to be helpful to entrepreneurs, even without huge check writing.
And that's such an important point to emphasize, is that anyone can make a big difference with a small act, a small amount of money. And I think going back to the first part when you're talking about how you got into this, I think a lot of people have imposter syndrome when it comes to what do I actually have to offer? Can I really be an investor? And this is especially true for people who haven't come from wealthy families. Like they didn't talk about investing growing up, women, minorities, immigrants. So I think it's such a great point that you're making just about how much an individual can make a difference in the life of an early stage company.
Absolutely. And it really doesn't take very much money, because today, in order to start a business, really all you need pretty much is a laptop and an internet connection, and you can start an e-commerce business. So yeah, maybe your first angel investment check shouldn't be in, a startup like a Peloton or a Tesla that needs to raise millions and millions of dollars to build actual machinery. But you could for sure make a huge difference with a tiny check to someone who's starting an e-commerce company that doesn't actually need that much money to get their business off the ground. I also think, you only learn by doing. Angel investing is one of those things that it's like the business school of life. You learn by getting your feet wet. And I think about it as scaling myself. I could put all of my work into one startup that I'm running, but we all know that diversifying your portfolio is a more surefire way of success in investing, in life, in finances. And so I could either put all of my energy into one startup, or I could invest in 20 startup founders where all I need is one of them to be successful in order for the entire portfolio to work. And for me, I've always seen financial success as taking a portfolio strategy. And so for me, it's really exciting to be able to kind of sit back and support many entrepreneurs, knowing that the pressure is off just one of them to make it successful.
Yeah. And that's something that I stress over and over again as well, is like, don't put your eggs in one basket. It's weirdly not super intuitive for a lot of people, especially when they get really, really into one company and they're like, yes, this is the one that I want.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's what I always advise people who are getting into angel investing is, first of all, figure out how much money you can dedicate to angel investing. Be realistic. Early stage companies are very risky. So this should be money that you can afford to lose. This should not be money that you are counting on. And then once you know how much money you can invest, figure out how you could spread that up over at least 5 to 10 different investments. You're right, Lisa, so many people, they pick one startup, they get approached by a friend, a family member, a colleague, they invest in one startup. It doesn't work because there's a 90% fail rate in startups, just like any other business. They get burnt out on angel investing and they say never again. But you would never invest in just one stock in the stock market and expect your portfolio to grow. So why would you angel invest in only one company? You have to take that same portfolio approach that you would take in other areas of your investing life into this asset class also.
So tell us a bit about your due diligence process, and how do you go from a pitch deck and a founder who's approaching you to, yes, I'm ready to invest?
Wonderful question. For me, it has to be the right balance between the kind of idea opportunity and the founder. In fact, maybe not even the right balance. It's much more for me about the founder. I want to sit with a founder and I want to make sure that when the going gets tough, which it will, because entrepreneurship is a roller coaster ride, that entrepreneur has the grit and the passion for this project, that they're going to roll up their sleeves and get through the challenges instead of just walk away. So I have to really I have to walk away from the meeting feeling like this is this entrepreneur's life work to solve this problem. They're so passionate that they are not just going to run when they get through a hurdle. On the other hand, though, there has to be a real market opportunity there. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs who have passion, but they're 5 years too early, or there's just not really a market demand for what they're doing. So I also have to see that there's a real opportunity. For me, I think some of the best investments that I have made are in entrepreneurs that I'm going to say maybe were underestimated, or traditional investors didn't understand what they were doing. So, for example, my first great outcome in angel investing was a company that was developing a smart breast pump. Now, they could barely even get a meeting with traditional VCs because traditional VCs are mostly male. They were embarrassed to take a meeting about a breast pump. It was not something they wanted to hear about or talk about, and it was not something they personally understood. But I had just had a baby, and I understood how difficult it was. And I thought, well, about half of the human population is having these issues. So I wrote them their first check, and lo and behold, a few years later, they were purchased by Medela, one of the leading baby companies. And that also opened my eyes to the fact that there is a huge opportunity investing in entrepreneurs who might otherwise be a little invisible or not be able to get into the system. Because if they're solving a problem that they're having or you're having, they're probably solving a problem that millions of other people are having also.
Definitely. And that brings us to our shared passion around investing in women in particular, who even in this example we've been traditionally overlooked as founders, as investors in a largely male-dominated space. And so what advice do you have for women who are interested in getting into investing, but maybe just they're not in those networks, they're not really sure how to get started?
Well, first of all, I think, try to learn as much as you can before dipping your toe in. I've had a lot of success partnering with other women and investing together, because what that means that suddenly you only have to put up a fraction of the capital in order to make the same amount of investments. Or if you put up the capital that you were going to put up anyway, suddenly when you're partnering with other people, there's a lot more money that you can work with, or you can get you can negotiate for better terms if you're coming to the table with bigger checks. So for me, I actually almost always co-invest with other women. I like someone else to have their eyes on a deal. I don't want to know that I'm the only one who likes it. Chances are, if another smart woman in my life likes a deal enough to put her own money into it, that we're making a good decision together. So I do a lot of communal investing, which I really recommend for people who are just starting off, or people who don't have as much personal capital to put up. And I mean, there's so many great resources and communities out there for women that wanted to get into investing, but it's something that I'm just so passionate about recruiting more women into, because the more that women control the money and put the money into the ecosystem, the more decision-making power we have, the more seats at the table we have, the more that, the next generation of women like me won't walk into Silicon Valley and be the only woman in the room. We need to control that money and be putting the money out there if things are going to change.
And that's why we constantly emphasize investing in the future you believe in, which is what angel investing really is that you have the opportunity to have your dollar actually build the future that you want and actually empower the diverse leaders that you want in charge. Because half of the future Fortune 500 companies are probably still in someone's head, their product in someone's bedroom right now. And there's just so many incredible innovations that can happen, but we need those diverse voices.
You're absolutely right. And that's another thing I love about angel investing is that you can really have an impact in the world. You put your money where your mouth is. So for me in my portfolio, when I look at it, it's very important to me that I am investing in majority female founders. I'm investing in diverse founders. And that's something that I really look for in a team when I'm making an investment. Listen, there are a lot of great companies out there that are founded by all white men, and they will get funded by someone else. They don't need my money. So for me, I have a limited amount of capital, and every dollar that I spend is a voice for some way standing up for what I believe in. And I believe in the success of diverse teams and diverse founders. So that for me is a hard line in the sand that if I see a company that doesn't have that, well, great. I still wish them luck. They'll just have to go get their money elsewhere.
Amazing. One area that we've talked about a bit, but where women can also make a big impact is in the blockchain world, investing in crypto. So tell us a bit about your involvement and your thoughts on where the future of that is going.
I'm so glad you asked that. And I'm so excited about the crypto and blockchain space. And I got excited about it, maybe for reasons that you wouldn't expect. I'm not, your typical crypto bro that's, out there investing in all like the crazy new coins. I actually got excited about the space because I was so sick and tired of seeing women banging their heads against the wall, trying to get into male-dominated spaces and traditional tech fields that it was so hard for women to break into. And then I saw, over here is this whole brand new industry around crypto and blockchain where we could get in on the ground floor. And I almost worry that too much of the conversation around women and diverse founders in tech is about how do we break in over here when we're ignoring the fact that there are all of these new emerging fields in tech where it's wide open. It's brand new. We're all learning together. And if we don't get into crypto and blockchain and some of these other industries today, we are just going to be having this identical conversation 20 years from now about how we get more women into those fields when we could have just been there from the beginning.
So how would you advise for a woman who's saying WTF is a blockchain? How does she get started?
Well, first of all, the field is so new that even just listening to several podcasts, reading a book on it will pretty much catch you up to the point where you know more than 95% of the population on these topics. I started off, I knew nothing about crypto or blockchain probably about 4 years ago. And I got asked to give a speech, a 1-hour speech on blockchain. And I thought, I should say no to this. I know nothing. I am not an expert. And then I thought, well, maybe this is a forcing function for me to learn about. If I say yes to the speech, I have to learn enough that I can be educated in this space. And so I said yes. I spent, several hours listening to podcasts. I called up people who I knew were working at blockchain startups and asked them, any question, even like questions that I thought were so dumb and silly and amateur hour. I just asked them all. And by the time I was done, I felt I had a really solid understanding. After I gave that keynote and it was successful, yay, my next step was to start angel investing in some blockchain startups. I invested in a company. I love theater and the theater space. That's one of my passions. So I invested in a company that was using blockchain to stop kind of the secondhand ticket sales for crazy successful shows like Hamilton and things like that, so that more money from those secondhand ticket sales could go back into the pockets of the actual show and the actors and not just StubHub and those dealers. So that for me was an exciting real world use case of blockchain. And then because I put money into the company, well, now I really had to understand blockchain because my money was at stake there. So it's getting involved in the industry, I think, step by step. If I learned from scratch, so can you, so can any of us. And that's what I think is so exciting.
And the other thing that I think is just important to note is even the entire principles around blockchain between collaboration and transparency, they're so aligned with a lot of feminine values. So for you, as you look at the future of blockchain and just crypto, and where do you see this really making the biggest impact?
I think there's so much impact here. I think decentralized finance in general is just so exciting. I'm very lucky and blessed to be sitting here in the United States, where in general, we trust our banks and trust our finance system and trust that our money will retain its value. My husband grew up in South Africa. We have a lot of family all over the world. And all you need to do is open the news to know that many people live in countries where they cannot trust their banking system and they cannot trust the value of their money to retain So we are lucky to be sitting in a place where we can be skeptical about decentralized finance because we don't need it, but billions of people around the world do. And if we truly are thinking that technology can make the world a better place and improve people's lives, then we need to be thinking about the billions of people who are unbanked and who can't trust their country's finance systems. And so that for me is what makes decentralized finance such an incredible opportunity, not just for us, but for entrepreneurs and people all over the world.
Amazing. Are there any other industries or types of investments that you are most bullish on going forward?
Well, a new category that I've really started getting interested in this year is education. I always knew that education was ripe for disruption, but after having 3 children getting homeschooled for a year because of COVID, it has really reminded me that we rely on traditional schooling for way too many things. And when that goes down, everything in society goes down. So for me, that's a real focus area on families and children and education, because that we have to disrupt that. If we're losing way too many women in the workforce because of children being home from school, and that's something that's an immediate need to fix.
And when you approach investments in industries that you're interested in, say, for example, education, do you have a specific solution in mind and then go search for a company that's doing that? Or you just know the problem you want to solve and start having those conversations with entrepreneurs and essentially building out your hypothesis based off of the various solutions you're seeing?
Yeah, a little of both. Sometimes I'll start speaking with people who are already working in the space, or I'll start putting out feelers saying, does anyone know entrepreneurs who are thinking about this problem or solving it? But the honest answer is that none of us really know what the world will look like in another year or 5 years. And so I also want to make sure that I'm working with entrepreneurs that are open-minded enough to shift and pivot as the world changes, not entrepreneurs who have blinders on that think, this is the one way that we solve this problem. So I think all of us, we need to be creative and resilient in solving these problems together.
Amazing. So how would you define a confident investor? What traits does that person possess?
I'm not sure that anyone can ever be a confident investor, because if you knew exactly what was going to pay out, well, then, congratulations to you with that crystal ball. Everyone in the world should be giving you their money to invest. But for me, I almost see myself as a patron of entrepreneurship, just like someone used to be a patron of the arts. You support the opera or the ballet or the museum. Every time I write a check to an entrepreneur, I think, I am supporting something that would not have existed in the world until I came and supported that entrepreneur to make it a possibility. And for me, even that alone is enough. Even if the company never amounts to anything, that's enough. Of course, I want my money to be successful and I want it to multiply. But I think just the fact that something could not exist in the world until you helped it is really rewarding and one of the best aspects about investing, for sure.
And I love that comparison of being a patron, patron of the arts, being a patron for these companies, because as a creative myself, as an artist who has grown up in my career in tech and startups and venture capital, I think that investing is this beautiful combination of art and science. And so I love that ability to bring that in and say, you can, no matter who you are, you can be an investor.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think it's so wonderful that you brought that up, Lisa, because it's not just tech companies. When people think about investing, it's not just startups. Like I invest in a lot of theater projects. And those to me are businesses. They're startups. I invest in Broadway shows. I invest in art installations, things like that, that really need to be run like a business where you can marry your creative soul and everything. So also keep your mind open to what a startup is, because it doesn't just have to be like a few dudes in a garage programming computers. There are so many kinds of businesses out there that need your help.
Amazing. And that goes back to the diversification aspect of diversifying all the various asset classes. And just finally, is there any last takeaways you'd like to leave our audience with?
I just think, the best time to start something was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So, don't waste time thinking, oh my gosh, I've missed out on all these years of knowledge and experience. Just start investing. I mean, one of the reasons why I love equity crowdfunding is that for $100, you could be an angel investor. Gone are the days that you need to be writing $25,000 or $50,000 checks to make a difference for a startup. So there's really no reason that we can't all just get started today and learning. I really, would love to see a year from now, many more women angel investing and participating in the early days of startups.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Randi.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
This podcast is provided for educational purposes only by Republic and Republic.co. Nothing discussed should be construed as legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice. The views of the presenters may not be the views of Republic and its affiliates. Always consult with trusted professional advisors before making investments. Private investments are inherently illiquid and may result in a total loss. All rights reserved.